Welcome to the Everyday Creative Podcast. We are two creatives that will discuss our own creative journeys, mental health, and a little bit of everything in between. Oh yeah, we're married too. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to the Everyday Creative Podcast. I'm Camaryn.
And I'm Bryce.
And we're your hosts. And we're here for episode 3.
Episode 3. It's been a big week.
It was a big week.
Yeah.
For the Everyday Creative Pod family.
First off, we just want to thank you guys.
Yeah.
We surpassed 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys have been watching it apparently.
It was like exponential growth. We were going to do the math, but then we didn't.
I totally forgot, but you know.
It also probably wouldn't have been accurate.
No,
so that's
okay. I'm not good at math.
But
the stereotype doesn't hold up.
Phrase. But we grew a lot over the past week, which was really exciting for us. And so we're grateful for all the people who listen, but also all the people who subscribe, because it's good to know that we have people out there who want to listen.
Oh, yeah. So getting right into things.
Yeah.
Camaryn.
Bryce.
What type of creative were you this week?
I think I was more creative this week than I was last week.
Really? How so? What did you do? Not that I don't know already, but I am interested to know what you say.
Well, it's nothing it's nothing huge, honestly, but it's the little victories, right? So I kind of, was just brainstorming some ideas for a possible short story we could do together. I just had ideas flowing.
Okay.
Remember?
Oh, yeah.
You act like you don't remember.
I have to act surprised for the camera.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so just ideas flowing. I also, I am like not a drawer at all, but I was you don't know this part. I was journaling and had like this image in my mind, and so I drew it out. Awesome. And I think that counts as some creativity of just like having thoughts flowing through my mind a little bit more than I have.
That really leads into our main topic today,
kind of. It will.
So keep that in your mind. I want to bring that back up.
Okay. How about you?
I consider myself a hopeful creative this week.
Hopeful.
So
I like that.
Yeah. We've been doing 2 episodes of this podcast, and I cried on the first one. And so, I've been kind of down the past couple months creatively and just mentally. But this past week, really, I felt like I turned a corner.
Yeah. And
so I'm feeling more hopeful. The story that you're talking about, I started storyboarding it and coming up with ideas. I had a solid amount of freelance editing work and commercial work this week, so I was kind of busy. But yeah, so I'm a hopeful creative this week.
I felt like this week, for us at least, that was a theme. It was just like hopeful. I think part of it too is like the weather was nicer this past week. And so we got to be outside, and that helps me always just feel excited for whatever's coming next.
The allergies are going to be flowing soon.
That's the part that's not fun, but at least for me, I'm like prescription medicated from it because mine are so bad. Mine are so bad. So they're not as bad as yours anymore because I do the things I need to so that they're not bad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So in my notes here, I have that there's a story time. You said
it's not like a big story, but I decided to wait and get your thoughts on this until we were recording. So
live reaction right here.
I guess my question, and it's not just for you, but also for our listeners. Do you ever get mistaken for a high schooler anymore?
No, I don't.
When's the last time somebody thought you were in high school?
In middle school. I always looked older than I was.
Yeah.
So people always kind of guessed up for me.
Well, my experience is a little bit different. I am a married woman.
You are?
I can legally drink. But I got mistaken for a high schooler this week.
Oh, no. Again?
Again.
This isn't a one-time occurrence. It happens quite a bit, actually.
And it's specific to this place. So I was at the dentist this week. And last year at the dentist, because prior to last year, like I was like 19, so not that far removed from high school. So it was like 3 years ago or whatever. But then last year I was at the dentist and we were engaged at that point. And so I decided like not to schedule. So this is last year. Decided not to schedule 6 months out because there was a possibility that we weren't going to be in the area. And so whenever I was checking out, they were like, "Oh, are you going off to college?"
Oh no.
And I was like, I'm a senior in college right now. Like I'm about to graduate in like 2 months. It was like last spring. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm graduating. And yeah, so I was like, okay, maybe it's just like a one-off occurrence. Like that person that day, I had like my hair in like braids, so I don't know.
Maybe they were feeling old, so everybody else looked very young.
Like I was like, oh, maybe that's, So I go to the dentist this week. And she asked me if I had just graduated high school. So this is a whole different person too, who I've consistently had clean my teeth like for years. And she asked me if I just graduated high school.
Do you have any plans after school?
And I was like, oh, actually I'm out of college. She was like, what? She's like, did you do like the thing where you could graduate early? And I was like, well, technically I did graduate early, but like for people who are my age, they'd be coming up on
their senior year.
They're almost finished with their senior year. So it's like, I'm not that far, you know. She thought I just graduated high school. But then it blew her mind when I said I was also married. So now I'll say this, like, I don't know what it is because I feel like there's in certain contexts where people like think I'm older than I am. Maybe it's like once they get to know me or whatever, because I've had lots of people say like you're mature for your age and stuff like that. And then in other situations, people think I'm really young. And I guess I should be thankful because at some point I'm going to be like, if I have a baby face, at some point I'm going to be thankful for that. But I'm confused as to why it happens in certain situations. And why is it when I go to the dentist that apparently I'm in high school?
And they see you twice a year.
I know. I've been going there for a long time. And I don't know if it's because like when I go to like appointments, like I don't really wear like makeup because I also get treated very young when I go to the doctor's office. I don't know if that's part of it. I don't know if it's because I get a little anxious and so I just appear less confident, which makes me look younger. But all I have to say is these ladies are great. I love them. So if for some reason they listen,
thank you for watching.
They're doing a great job. Yeah. But I'm also like, you have my like information in front of you.
They have your birthday in front of you.
Just peek at the birthday, because if you look at the birthday, you'll realize I am actually over the age of 18, also over the age of 20. But yeah, that's my story. I just wanted to get, if you are a person out there who gets who's like a full-on adult, I mean, I know I'm probably still a baby to...
You're in your early 20s.
To other adults.
I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah, you're old. No, just kidding. But I know that like if you're 40, you know, then a 21-year-old seems like a baby. I get that. But I am an adult who's married, you know, and has their own responsibilities, adult responsibilities. Yeah. So if you're in that stage and you also get mistaken for a high schooler, tell me what you think it is. Like, why do we still get mistaken for high schoolers? I'm not really, I wasn't offended. Yeah. But I was just like, man, this happened to me last year. I thought like maybe in a year they'd think I was not in high school anymore, but yeah.
Well, what's funny is my mom and my grandmother get mistaken for sisters sometimes, which probably does not make my mom feel good, but it totally makes my grandma feel good. Yeah. She's like, oh no, we're not sisters. Like, I'm her mom. I don't know if people are just being nice. Some people say that stuff.
Yeah, they're like, if you look like your parent, they'll be like, oh, are you guys sisters? Type of thing. I got that.
My mom does not appreciate that.
I I wouldn't. It's great for whoever's older in that situation.
Yes.
It's not as good for...
I think my mom looks great for her age. She definitely doesn't look like my grandma.
Well, and she definitely doesn't look like her age. She looks younger than her age.
Stacy, if you're listening.
She really does. I've always thought that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
moving into a fan favorite section.
That was my story. Okay. Yes, we have Lights,
Camaryn, action.
That was not planned. So, as you all know, this is the section of the podcast where we talk about movies, TV shows, whatever's relevant
pop culture
today. And
well,
I'm gonna let you take it away because I'm very
so excited.
So excited.
I am so excited. So, for those of you not in the know,
not in the know,
a phenomenon has happened recently.
If you're living under a rock,
Dune Part 2 has released. So we are going to do a spoiler-free review of Dune Part 2. But Camaryn had not seen Dune Part 1 yet before this previous week. So we're going to do a quick overview, review, analysis of Dune Part 1. I want to hear her thoughts and opinions. And then we'll move into Dune Part 2 and, spoiler alert, tell you why you should go see this.
Yeah.
So, jumping into Dune Part 1.
I just have to say,
I took notes this week.
Bryce has notes, like pages prepared. Mm-hmm. I do not. So, you guys are getting my raw opinions here, not thought through, basically. So, we shall see. So,
Dune Part 1.
Yes.
Has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 3.9 on Letterboxd. Mm-hmm. It is directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is known for his such works as Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Prisoners, and there's more, but those are the ones he's mainly. Seen any of those. They're amazing. It's written by Denis Villeneuve. Well, it's adapted by Denis Villeneuve. Yeah,
a book
based on the book by Frank Herbert. It's written by Denis Villeneuve, Eric Roth, and John Spates. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I'd love to have him on the pod. So
tell us if we're wrong.
It's shot by Greg Fraser, incredible cinematographer. One of my favorite cinematographers working right now, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But he shot things such as Rogue One, The Batman, Vice, some episodes of The Mandalorian, and The Creator, which is up for an Oscar for visual effects. Anyway, music is by Hans Zimmer. Well, I guess when this comes out,
it will be Oscar nominated or a winner. Yeah. We don't know, but we don't know yet.
You guys know.
You guys know.
We don't know.
It's the weird thing about podcasts.
Anyway, the music is by Hans Zimmer, a master at what he does. It stars Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto, Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen, Josh Brolin as Gurney Halleck, Javier Bardem as Stilgar, Charlotte Rampling as the Reverend Mother, Sharon Duncan Brewster as Dr. Leet Kynes, and Zendaya as Chani. And I put Zendaya last because she's in it for like 10 minutes.
She is in it for 10 minutes. Also, I'll just put this out there.
Yes.
I have a little bit of a celebrity crush on Zendaya, or maybe more than a little bit. I love her.
She's great.
She's iconic.
She is iconic. So I've also compiled, for those who care, some fast facts about Dune Part 1.
Okay.
So there's a ton, and I am not very organized, unlike you. So they're all over the place. So here we go. It got nominated for 10 Oscars.
Are you kidding me?
You didn't know that?
Why would I know that?
I don't know. I feel like
I just watched Dune like a week ago. Dune 1 a week ago.
So it got nominated for 10 Oscars.
Wow.
Incredible. It won 6 for Best Score, Best Cinematography, Best Sound Editing, Best Visual Effects, and Best Production Design.
Okay.
Pretty cool. It came out on October 22nd, 2021. It made over $40 million on the opening weekend. And that's pretty cool because they put it on HBO Max the same day as it came out in theaters.
Because what year did it come out again?
2021. So we were on the tail end of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I was one of the people that went and saw Dune.
I was not.
Which is
because
interesting.
I didn't watch it.
Because I didn't know anything about Dune before this.
Oh, okay.
I went and saw it because, Timothee Chalamet, Zendaya,
Chalamet bing bong,
Oscar Isaac, all of those people were in it. And I was...
Great cast.
Yeah, great cast. Why not go see it? It looked cool. It looked like a Star Wars ripoff, which now I know Dune kind of inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars.
Oh.
Yes.
Not the other way around.
Not the other way around.
I did not pick up on that when you sent that post to me.
Yeah. So it was marketed as Dune, not Dune Part 1, just Dune. And people didn't know it was Part 1 until the opening, screen that says Dune Part 1. Yeah. Part 2 was greenlit just days after Part 1. So when they were making Part 1, they didn't know they were officially greenlit to make Part 2, but they figured that out very soon. Mm-hmm. As I said before, it's based on Frank Herbert's novel of the same name. Dune Part 1 and Part 2 cover Book 1.
Okay.
And the book was released in 1965.
Dune Part 1 and Part 2 cover Book 1.
Correct.
Wow.
In 1984, David Lynch adapted Dune into a movie. In 2000, the Sci-Fi Channel had a Dune miniseries. It was largely known to be unadaptable before Denis Villeneuve took it on. Okay. Because it's so dense. Mm-hmm. There's so many details and it gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
So people said that it was unadaptable, but after they saw Dune Part 1, they're like, okay, Denis can do this. It's pretty incredible. Sir Roger Deakins was supposed to DP this film before Greg Fraser was brought on. Roger Deakins is like the god of cinematographers. But there was a scheduling conflict, so they brought in Greg Fraser. Great idea. Such a great decision. I love Greg Fraser. It was shot over the course of 4 months. Zendaya only has 10 minutes of screen time. This is the second collaboration of Zendaya and Rebecca Ferguson after their 2017 movie, The Greatest Showman, together. It stars 6 Marvel stars, which is part of the reason.
6?
Yeah, part of the reason I went and saw Dune Part 1 in the first place. Josh Brolin, who plays Thanos and Cable. Dave Bautista, who plays Drax. David Dastmalchian, who plays Kurt in the Ant-Man movies. Stellan Skarsgård, who plays Dr. Eric Selvig in the Thor movies. Zendaya, who's obviously MJ in the Spider-Man films. And Oscar Isaac, who is in Moon Knight. He's Apocalypse in the X-Men series. And he's Miguel O'Hara in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Wow.
He's all over the place in Marvel.
I knew about 3 of the people you said right there.
So, those are my fast facts. Let me just ask you.
Yeah.
What did you think of Dune Part 1?
Wow.
I'm sorry, that was a lot.
Bryce's...
I just love Dune.
I know, you were very excited for us to talk about it.
Yes.
Let me think through my thoughts here. I will preface it by this. I think my thoughts on it and my only people who are watching would know what just happened. FOMO. Go watch on YouTube. Anyways, I think that the way that my review of it, it's going to be a little different than people who watched it years ago.
Okay.
Because it's really hard. I was thinking through my thoughts on the movie, but I was thinking through my thoughts after I had already seen Dune 2.
You did see Dune 1 before Dune 2.
I did.
But you were able to see them back to back.
But I saw them back to back, couple days apart.
1 hours apart. Because we watched Dune 1 on a Wednesday and Dune 2 the Thursday.
So that's why I think it's different, because I think your perspective on Dune Part 1 was whoa, because you saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
It was years ago. Mm-hmm. And like it made you excited for Dune 2. Whereas for me, it was more like, oh, I'm watching this so I can go watch.
Yeah.
And also like it was only one part of the story that I knew was coming. And also it's really hard for me to rate it when I saw Dune 2. So I just want to put that out there because I think it would make my perception of it different.
Yeah.
So, and I think I would probably rate it higher years ago when I saw it than I do right now.
So after you saw Dune 2,
it's really hard to look at Dune 1. So I will say, do you have any, is that a good starting
that's a
point?
good
Do you have
starting
another
point.
question for me or do you want me to just keep going?
Let me just ask you, what were your thoughts about Dune before you even saw it?
So
Did you have any thoughts?
It was a movie that I had wanted to watch, but at that point, which I think we weren't together at that point, and I didn't go to the movies, and we didn't have we didn't have, that streaming service, and so I just didn't watch it.
Yeah.
But I was definitely interested in watching it because I do really love Zendaya.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was like interested in watching it, but I just never
never got around to it.
But I will say for about a year now, I've been like, let's watch Dune. I want to watch Dune.
Yeah.
And then it just happened that like we just never did until we had to, type of thing, because we were going to see Dune Part 2. So, yeah, I was definitely interested in it. It looked awesome.
It's gorgeous.
They used Zendaya to market it very well for Dune 1.
So after we watched Dune, we went back and watched the trailers, and Zendaya's in like 95% of the trailer.
She narrates it.
Yeah. But she's in 10 minutes of it.
Not even. Like I was like, okay, like let's get Zendaya out here, and it was like right at the end of the movie.
So what did you like about it?
What did I like about it? It's so hard for me right now because all I have in my mind is Dune 2. Like it's so challenging. But I'll try to give my best answer. I liked the story. I thought it was a really good story. But again, like I just have to say it was really building to something. Yeah. So the whole movie of Dune Part 1 is I think a build. Like
it's a slow burn film.
Yeah, if you really just look at it by itself, it's like it like builds and builds and builds, and then it's like to what? You don't know because it's
knife fight.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be the end because there's more coming. Yeah. So it's not one of those. Obviously, you didn't know when you watched Dune Part 1, but it's not one of those like movies that have sequels and stuff where there's like a conclusion and then another one opens up. It's like supposed to all flow into each other.
So you don't think you could watch Dune Part 1 and it just be Dune Part 1?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think Dune Part 1 leaves a lot of things that aren't wrapped up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of questions.
If Warner Brothers never greenlit Dune Part 2.
That would be a disgrace.
Hot take. I don't even know if that's a hot take.
Probably not, since they greenlit Part 2. That's because I think the whole intent of, I think it wasn't made to be like, well, this could stand alone or we could make another one, which is like what a lot of times happens and what a lot of times makes sequels not as good. Probably a hot take, but like, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, this is really popular, so now let's make a sequel of it, where the initial intent was to just make it a movie. Yeah. Whereas I think with Dune, from the beginning, the intent was to make 3 of them. 2 of them at least.
I'm not sure.
At least it appeared to me that was.
That's what it seems like.
At least 2, because if you're saying that Dune 1 and Dune 2 are all from one book, then obviously they knew, because that means like Dune. I bet you like Dune 1 is literally like half of the book, maybe even less than half of the book.
I'm not sure how much happens.
So we haven't read the book.
I've never read the book.
So I think that there's a lot of things that are left. Again, it builds the whole way to not much of anything. And then there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that are talked about or referenced that aren't quite answered in Dune Part 1. And I also think that Dune Part 2, if you didn't watch Dune Part 1, it's going to be hard to understand Dune Part 2. That's how I feel.
I would love to talk to somebody that got drug along to Dune Part 2 and see, and that hadn't seen Dune 1 to see what they thought, if they were lost or if you can take Dune Part 2 as a whole and just as Dune Part 2.
Well, we can get back into that when we talk about Dune 2, and I can say more why then. But that's what I'll say for Dune Part 1. So I thought it was just a lot of building. But I will say, I don't handle like action, anticipation, like what's gonna happen type thing, like fight scenes well. And the problem is, it's actually better if we go to a theater. My viewing experience is better for very many reasons, but also because Bryce has never seen the movie. So I can't lean over and go, what happens? Tell me what happens.
What happens?
I'm like, Bryce, please, I can't handle it. Tell me what happens. This is literally
and
what
then
I
you
sound
start
like.
Then you do this. You start pulling your phone. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you, just don't Google it. Gosh.
That's just me. I would never actually Google it. It's just to make you tell me. I start grabbing you. I'm like, you have to tell me. I can't handle it. And so whenever we see a movie for the first time, that also, because I will say that there were times in Dune 1 where you were like, you know, it's fine.
It's
he
fine.
Survives.
You know Dune 2's coming out. Timmy makes it.
So I guess if that's, you know, any consolation to like, is that even a word? Did I say that right?
Consolation? Yeah.
Oh, my brain today. To like how good like fight scenes were and stuff. I think it looked great. Yeah. Again, I'm having a really hard time because I really believe that Dune 2 outshines Dune Part 1. So it's like all I can see when I think of Dune is clips from the second one. So yeah, this isn't really a good review.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I will say I agree with like the reviews that it was given like a 3.9, right?
Yeah.
Like I was having a hard time deciding because when we review, we're doing it by 0.5s. So I was having a hard time deciding if I wanted to give it a 3.5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think it's somewhere in the middle there.
Okay, so like a 3.75 somewhere in there. Is there anything, you kind of answered this. Is there anything you didn't like about it?
I mean, I don't think so.
Okay. Just other than there's no conclusion, really.
Yeah. Like, I think it's just, and that's not something I dislike about it. I'm just saying it's important to Dune 2, the fact that it doesn't have a final ending. Leaves you wanting more.
So moving on to Dune 2.
Yeah.
It currently has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
And a 4.6 on Letterboxd.
Okay.
Pretty good. So it is directed again by Denis Villeneuve. It's written by Denis Villeneuve and John, whatever his last name is. It's shot again by Greg Fraser. Incredible work. Incredible work. The music is by Hans Zimmer, which is a fun fact. After he completed the Dune Part 1 score, he kept on writing.
Oh, for Dune 2.
Yes, even though it hadn't been greenlit, he just kept on writing. He felt inspired.
Yeah.
I read an article that he even created new instruments to get some of the sounds in Dune.
Yeah. I will say this. If you listen to our episode last week, you'll know that I made a comment how I'm not always aware of the score. So I really tried to pay attention.
Yeah.
I didn't always, I wasn't always aware of it, but I noticed it more.
It's a great score.
Growth.
That's growth. It's a great score.
Yeah.
So the cast is largely the same as Dune Part 1. We add in Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha, Florence Pugh as the princess, Christopher Walken as the Emperor. I almost did a Christopher Walken impression, but nobody wants to hear that. And Léa Seydoux as Lady Margot Fenring. Yeah. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I'm missing anybody. There's a lot of other people, but those are the main characters that are added. Some fast facts for you from Dune Part 2 that are spoiler free. Austin Butler underwent vocal training for this vocal performance of his to sound more like Stellan Skarsgård and to also lose the Elvis voice. He also went under intense physical training because if you have seen Dune 2, he
got abs.
He's jacked. So he did an intense physical training regimen. Yeah.
I thought that's how he usually looked.
I don't know. Maybe he
doesn't really. I feel like
I've never really
show that off.
Yeah,
so
but he looked great. The Sandworm riding sequence took 44 days to shoot, and you can watch that on YouTube now. They've released the entire sequence, but it's not like seeing it in theaters.
Yeah. Or in the context of the movie.
Yeah. It made $82.5 million opening weekend, which is pretty awesome.
So that's like double what they
pretty much
Dune
double
Part 1 made.
Yeah.
Which, granted, it was also on HBO. So
yeah. To put that into context and to compare a little bit, Oppenheimer made $82.45 million opening weekend, and that went on to make over $950 million. So could Dune 2 be $1 billion movie? It's quite possible. I could see it happening. And those are the only fast facts I have for that movie. So all I was supposed to write more notes down about this film, but I forgot and ran out of time. All I wrote for thoughts is, wow, wow, wow.
Okay, well, let's start with this. What would you give it? 1 to 5?
1 to 5.
Or 0 to 5?
So on Letterboxd, I gave it a 5 out of 5. Mm-hmm. But that's 100% technically, I guess. Mm-hmm. If I had to give it a number, it would be like a 4.9 out of 5.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Like a 95 out of 100, 97 out of 100. Somewhere in that range. It's pretty near perfect.
Yeah.
The only thing I would dox it for is there's one visual effect sequence.
Yeah, even I noticed
that just isn't. It's in the trailer too. And I saw it in the trailer and I thought, they'll fix it. It's not 100% rendered. But then I saw it in the movie. I was like, ugh.
It looks like a video game.
It does. It looks like a PlayStation cutscene.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could have spent a little bit more budget or just cut it out.
Yeah. But otherwise, how'd you think it looked?
It was near perfect. Mm-hmm. I'm going to speak in hyperbole, but this is how I feel. This is the pinnacle of sci-fi, and this is the new standard of cinema and especially sci-fi film. Mm-hmm. This is what all film should, sci-fi and fantasy and action adventure. This is the level that they should go to.
You couldn't, honestly, I know a lot of it was probably CGI, right?
There was a lot of visual effects.
But you couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. And
But they also shot a ton on location, which helped.
Yeah. But I thought I think that's cool. When, obviously, I think in the back of your mind or subconsciously, you know that, that thing's not really exploding right now, in real life. But it doesn't take, there's some times where you watch movies where it takes you out for a minute and you're like, oh, yeah, that's not real. But it never did that other than that one scene. Even
riding the Sandworm.
Yeah.
I knew that he was going to ride the heck out of it. And there wasn't a second that was taken out.
Please, no. That just made my life. Please don't take that out.
Also, the Dune popcorn bucket.
There's just so many things.
There's so many things with that worm.
It's so weird. I can't. It's so weird. The worm. The worm is weird.
Yes. While Paul was riding the worm, I
What? Bryce. Okay.
While he was riding the shot.
It's just, why can't we go past this?
While he was riding the Shai Hulud, there was not a moment where I didn't believe he was riding it.
Yeah.
It made me think of a scene in the first Avengers movie. At the end when they're fighting the Chitauri in New York. Stay with me. And the big Chitauri, like, centipede thing is like going through the air, and they're fighting on it, everybody. And it looks like they're on a green screen.
Oh, yeah,
on a moving platform. This was not that.
Like, it's believable that could be a real creature.
Yeah. I don't know how they did it. Probably a mix of visual effects and practical.
There's also a lot of detail. Like when he, like, pulls and there's like nostril hairs. Like, that's a lot of detail.
One thing that I hate about modern movies are they look so clean. The lens never gets dirty, and the visual effects are so crystal clear, and everything's high resolution. But this, it got dirty. While Paul was riding that worm, it got dirty. The lens got sandy.
Yeah.
You could feel it. Verisimilitude. The verisimilitude was so high in this movie. It was so good. It was so good. What are some of your thoughts? Because I could go on about this for a while.
The acting was top notch.
Oh, incredible.
Incredible.
Who do you think gave the best performance?
I think in comparison to Dune Part 1, Timothee, Chalamet Bing Bong.
Timmy stepped up.
He really did.
So the movie he did before this one was Wonka. And he was, happy-go-lucky, like, woohoo. So I was a little skeptical going in, because I've seen him in a lot of things where he can play the emotional sad boy and all that. He's great at acting. But I didn't know how I would take it as him being a leader and leading an army.
Because I feel like in the first Dune, he's very much like that character that we've seen him before. Kind of like an immature character, kind of like a little bit insecure, trying to find his way. Whereas in Dune 2, he has to take on that leadership.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, he really stepped up to the plate.
He did.
And
I believed it.
I did see in an interview that he talked about going from Wonka to Dune and how it was like, it kind of was a culture shock for him at first. Because he was like, went from one set that was a completely different character and to another. So that's interesting. Austin was freaking creepy.
He was so menacing. He's one of the best villains I've seen in a while.
I like hated when he was on screen because it was so, he's so good.
I couldn't take my eyes off of the screen.
different reactions to a very scary villain, but okay.
Did you see the one interview where he's like, yeah, I always read the book and I really liked him.
Yeah, and Florence is like, really? What? Whenever he said that, I was like, dude, you got issues.
But hey, he drowns himself in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good.
Not for a second did I see Elvis.
No, but we also didn't go see Elvis.
That's true.
So.
And he's also bald in this film. So
yeah. Florence, listen,
She's a princess.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. So if it's a spoiler, we'll either cut it out or put a warning in.
We'll put a warning probably.
I said this to you when we left. And then you said that one of the reviewers you watched said the same thing. She narrates the beginning.
Yeah.
Now in Dune 1, Zendaya narrates the beginning and is in it for 10 minutes. So whenever Florence narrated the beginning, I was like, she's not even going to be in this very much. She was in it more than I expected because
I think she was in it probably for 15 or so minutes.
She did great.
Incredible.
I think her character is probably going to grow in Dune 3.
Yeah.
Part 3. So I'm excited for that. I really like Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
Man, she comes up every week on this podcast. But I really
She really does.
She really does. Like, Florence, we need you on. I would I would love to meet her. Anyways.
Prediction with Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
She's one of the greatest actresses working right now and will be one of the greatest actresses in the future. She is in Oppenheimer, as we stated, which will probably win Best Picture or has won Best Picture.
Yeah.
And my prediction is Dune Part 2 will be up for Best Picture next year and will possibly win. That will make her in the Best Picture 2 years in a row. That's pretty crazy. She also is like amazing with like different dialects, like different accents, things like that. I guess accents more than that, but she's awesome. It's cool because in interviews and on Instagram and social media, she's kind of silly. She's fun. She's lovable. But whenever you see her in a role,
she's very serious.
She takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Like this one, she dove into this character.
The thing is, we've seen her in so many characters that a lot of times are pretty different, and I never see each other I never see overlap.
She looks the same.
She looks the same, but she's a whole different character.
But I know she's a different person.
And I think that means that you're a great actress.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, because we didn't say this.
Yeah.
We went opening weekend. We went Thursday.
Yeah.
And then we went yesterday, which would be Friday, because we're recording on a Saturday. So we've watched it twice.
Yeah.
At this point. The second time watching, I was more blown away by Florence's character and her acting.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have to put this out there, that this is a movie you have to watch twice.
If not more.
Because there's so much happening when you first watch it that you kind of just sit there and you're like, whoa. Like, you're kind of like blown away by it because it looks crazy.
It's insane.
And like, the acting's amazing. There's so many different layers to the story that I picked up on the second time we watched it than I did the first.
Yeah.
Like deep layers. And so I would recommend you go watch it, but also maybe possibly give it a second watch at some point, because I feel like there's things I just didn't even pick up on. And even like, I feel like watching Florence's character the second time, I realized like there's some depth to her character that's in it for 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you start to see
the
more
things she's
from
doing
the
with her
characters.
eyes and just her movements.
Yeah.
Her presence she's delivering.
Yeah. And I really am excited to see her in more.
And like you said, go see this movie in theaters. It will not be the same if you watch it at home. And after we saw it for the first time, the only word that kind of came to mind, there was a couple words that came to mind, like spectacle and just extraordinary, but it's this weird British word that we don't use in America very often. Gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked. We should start using that word on our podcast.
That just, it feels like a word that just kind of encapsulates everything I felt about that. I was gobsmacked by this film. It's so overwhelming. That's why you have to see it the second time. The visuals and the sound is so powerful. It's part of the film, and it just creates an overwhelming, immersive experience.
Yeah. Back onto the actors list. I thought Zendaya was great. Zendaya acted in this movie with her eyes more than anything.
Yeah. Her facial expressions.
Her facial expressions, her demeanor.
Yeah.
That was just how her character is. So, the mom, I'm really, I struggle with names of these characters.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yes, but what was her character's name?
Lady Jessica.
Yeah. Her acting was awesome.
After seeing it for the second time, I think it's solidified that she might be my favorite character in this film, or at least in the top 3.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But not because you like her character.
Oh no, but I think her acting is incredible.
And then like all the guys in it.
So we got the Fremen. Stilgar is incredible.
Stilgar, his character is such like it's like what you need in that movie.
There's not much comedy in the movie, but he's the comedic relief.
Yeah.
In the first movie, you don't get to spend too much time with him.
No, I honestly didn't remember.
But this movie, you really get to dive into who he is. And kind of, he's quirky, he's funny, and he truly believes in this world that he's living in. So Javier Bardem, he's killing it.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin's back as Gurney Halleck. He's good.
Is that guy who plays Thanos?
Yeah, he's the military guy.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he's good. Stellan Skarsgård is doing great as the Baron.
Yeah.
Yeah, creepy.
Very
the only
creepy.
person that I wasn't 100% sold on, the first time I saw it, it was more of a, oh yeah, that's Christopher Walken.
Mm-hmm.
And then last night when we saw it, I was like, all I can see is Christopher Walken. It's not that he's doing a bad job. It's just...
He's not really in it a lot either.
No.
So it's like you can't really develop his character
There's not
much.
a whole lot of dimension to give to that character.
Yeah. I don't know what'll happen in the next one.
I don't either.
There's a lot of... Like, that's the other thing. Like, Dune 2 also left you wanting to know where the story goes.
Yes.
So I know we're going to have to wait for part 3. But
yeah, I know Denis said that he wants to do 1 or 2 films between Dune Part 2 and the third one he does. But he is writing currently. So hopefully we'll get Dune Part 3 or Dune Messiah, whatever they decide to call it.
Well, I wanted to like dive into something a little bit, but we're going to we're going to be very vague. So I think if you watch the movie, you'll then be able to understand what we're thinking about, what we're referring to. But we had some different interpretations on things.
Yes.
And like, so that's part of the reason we went and watched it a second time, because we were like, what? And I guess the internet also has like 50-50 split on some things in the movie. And I realized that there's so many things when you watch this movie. There's so many things. Well, you know, that Timothee's character is the like central character. Well, there's so many things like vying for his loyalty, really.
Yeah.
That all of those things kind of influence him as the character and then influence the story. And we were kind of talking about this last night. We don't know what the writers intended necessarily. And we don't know if they honestly intended it to be kind of up to interpretation because it's going to be answered in Dune 3.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I mean by these movies they all come together, because there's things that happen in Dune Part 2 that were referenced in Dune Part 1, or that there's a reason, there's a build to some of the things that are occurring. And then my guess is there's going to be things in Dune Part 3 that answer this question of like, who are these people? What's the actual character and how it's developing? Are we interpreting it the right way? Or are we going to get our answer when we get to, and like, where does his loyalty lie is the question.
Yeah. And I don't think even some of the actors know exactly.
No. I've watched interviews where there's differing opinions and I'm like, okay, so what? I think we just have to wait.
I think there's assumptions you can make. Like I was talking about, there's a lot of motivated camera movements that after a certain point happens, they change, but then they can also be interpreted different ways. Even in the end, you interpreted one thing differently than I did. I was like, oh, that's just really good editing to create tension. Like that was an editing choice. Yeah. And you saw it a different way. So there's different ways to interpret film and story.
But I also think like the way that they told this story, if there's so many people that are having different interpretations, it is intentional.
Oh, 100%.
Because I think after my first watch, I was like, wow, they didn't make that very clear. Is that because it wasn't well, written or shown or whatever? But then after the second watch, I realized, no, like it's intentional that we're supposed to be like, some of us are sympathizing with characters. Some of us aren't. Like that's intentional because we're going to see how it plays out in the next movie. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing because that doesn't always happen with these movies, especially like kind of like the sci-fi action. Yeah. There's usually a very clear right and wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not how it is in this movie.
No.
And I think that's an interesting take on the writing. And I also want to go back to what you said of how the camera angles and things changed as the movie goes on. Like, those are the details that when you watch it, you're not necessarily like, I don't notice those things, but they are so necessary to the story. It's what makes it a good story. So it's just interesting. Like, it's all of those details, and it's the fact that Dune is stacked on like so many, not just the actors who are amazing, but director, writer, cinematographer, like all of that. So
they were building a dream team.
Yeah, I feel like one day on this podcast, we need to like get somebody on who makes movies. This might be a long.
I would love to get Greg Fraser on.
Like, talk about the whole process, because the editors, they're not like, their job is after everything's filmed, or most, I don't know how it might differ, but like, what is that whole process like? Because you had made that comment where I interpreted something differently based on the editing than you did. It's like, well, who made that decision and what was their intent? And was it the same as, you know, the writers and the directors? And like, I don't know. It's just a lot of brains all in one project. And I know that there's like some like quote unquote, like checks and balances of like, hey, I edited this. Oh, that's not what I meant. Okay, let's do it this way. But like, it would be cool to talk about the process.
That would be really cool. Hopefully someday we'll grow this to a place where we can have Denis on. Yeah. And we can see Bryce nerd out. Oh, yeah. Would you get who in the movie making world would you get like starstruck from? Movie making world. Would you fangirl over someone? I feel like I could have a better conversation with Denis Villeneuve. I would fangirl over Christopher Nolan. Like, would you stutter? Yeah, I would lock up with Christopher Nolan. With Denis, I feel like I could have a better conversation. Greg Fraser, I would just want to know all of his secrets. All of the tricks of... Because he shot The Creator. And he shot that on a Sony FX3 or FX6. It's like a $4,000, $5,000 camera. And it looks insane. So... It's like, Greg, what are you doing? Like, you just shot Dune with an Arri Alexa mini large format. Okay, cool. But now you're shooting on the Sony FX3 or 6. And then, it's pretty crazy. It's just, I know that's a lot of nerd talk, but... Yeah, just do what I do and nod, okay? Yeah. But I do have one more question for you. Yeah. Dune or Star Wars? That is quite the question. It is a question. Because it's a hard question. Because I feel like the Star Wars world has been like developed further. So there's a lot more context. Like, for example, like you have the originals. Yeah. But then you have now stuff that goes before that like builds the setup of the Empire. Yeah. And then you have the sequels, which like, goes after. With Dune right now, we just have one story. It's like the original trilogy. Yeah. We don't know how those houses got formed. We don't know how the Emperor got his power. Yeah. Like, that's some of the stuff that I wish I knew. Maybe you know if you read the book. I'm not sure. But the other thing is you're if we're comparing just the originals. Yes. They're from like what? 1970 something? 77. And these this is the original Star Wars. 2020s. So it's really hard to compare. The other thing too is like Star Wars, I think, is an easier concept to grasp. Well, it's not. There's also like compare like Nazi. Yes. Like the empires. But Dune has a lot of underlying themes. Right. That are a little bit harder to grasp. Yeah. There's a lot of, not grasp like as if it's hard to understand, but just like
you can watch it at a certain level, or you can really dive in. And if you really dive in, I don't know what you'll find.
I think there's a lot of substance to Star Wars, but Dune has a lot of commentary on the world in which Frank Herbert was writing in the 60s, but also now there's a lot of commentary about a bunch of different things.
Yeah. But the question too is, if like this is being written in our time.
Yeah.
So we can say that there's that commentary. But I don't know for people who watched Star Wars when it came out, if maybe they said, wow, this has a lot of commentary on the world because it was relevant to what was happening at that time. Like, if you really think about it, the Empire is based on like Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't that far removed from when that time period happened.
That's true.
So it's going to be more, it's going to feel more relevant than it does to us.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can really compare them. The other thing too is like, Dune's like our adult Star Wars in a way, even though Star Wars is for adults too. But do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just be like, oh, I don't like, Star Wars is my second, because it's like, it's iconic.
Yeah. I would say the Star Wars is still my favorite.
Yeah.
If I could only have one for the rest of my life, it's going to be Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's just so much lore and
Yeah.
story in that. And plus there's Andor. So you do get your adult Star Wars.
Yeah, that was too intense for me. That was too intense for me, okay? Because that was one of those things where I was like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But both are great. It's just...
Yeah, I just wanted to know.
There's similarities, but there's a lot of differences too.
I just wanted to know your opinion on that.
Yeah. So, we want to keep doing this, and we're going to keep going and seeing some of these movies that are coming out. But also, there's some times where it just feels like, what are we gonna review? So if you have, it doesn't have to be a movie that just came out this year, but if you have any of your favorite movies, even favorite TV shows, obviously that would take us a little bit longer, but that you want to know our thoughts on, leave it in the comments because we're looking for movies to review. So
yeah, and if you saw Dune Part 2 or haven't seen it and will see it, put in the comments what you think. We would love to have a conversation about it.
Leave a review. Yeah. We want to know if you guys feel the same way, and then maybe also like message us on what your interpretation of the ending was.
Is,
because we're divided in this
house divided.
So as we move into our main segment of the episode, we're going to start with our other fan
favorite section.
Our random generated question.
Yes.
So I've got the questions.
All right.
You got Siri.
Hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 50. 46.
46.
Uh-oh.
I like this question. Yeah. Which Spider-Man is the best?
Oh, that's easy. Hands down, Andrew Garfield.
I agree.
Not even a question.
But you know what the fans say, right?
What do the fans say? I'm a fan, and I say Andrew Garfield.
They say that, what is it? What's his face?
Tobey Maguire?
Tobey Maguire plays the best
Peter Parker.
Andrew plays the best Spider-Man, and Tom Holland does good at not the best, but good at both. They're so different though, because like Andrew's is kind of like the sexy Spider-Man. Let's be honest.
Sexy Spider.
Let's be honest. There's some hot scenes in that movie.
Yeah, I love him and Gwen Stacy. I love Emma Stone.
Right now?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. You are.
I love Spider-Man.
I think The Amazing Spider-Man gets overlooked as a good movie. I think it came out a little bit too quick after Spider-Man 3. So people kind of wrote it off, and it wasn't like the Tobey Maguire movies. And then The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, which has some good parts. Overall,
not
pretty bad movie. But there are some redeemable qualities of it. Yeah, but Andrew Garfield's my pick.
That's my pick too. I will say, I think I'm a little biased because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. Like, you know this.
Yeah.
I love Spider-Man, which means I freaked out on the last Marvel Spider-Man, just putting it out there. But Andrew was my first Spider-Man that I watched. So I didn't watch Tobey's until later.
Yeah.
But the first time I was ever introduced to Spider-Man was Andrew Garfield's.
Okay.
In The Amazing Spider-Man. And I actually loved those movies so much that I got them on DVD for my birthday that year.
Do you still have those?
I don't.
I want them.
But I think my mom might.
Are they on Blu-ray?
But I don't know. But I do know this. I know that my mom has the second one. I don't know where the first one went.
Okay.
I think my dad might have it somewhere.
So we'll try to get that back.
I took movies to his house once but yeah, like I was like, that's what I want for my birthday.
Okay.
Because I wanted to watch it whenever. Because this was before streaming.
Let me ask you a question.
Now I can watch it whenever.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Out of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which one's your favorite?
Oh, the third one. The third one. But I know that we disagree on this.
Yes.
I actually do love the Far From Home.
The second one?
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay.
But also, I'm a little bit of a sucker for a good romance. So that influences it. I can't look objective. I can't look at it without looking at the MJ and Peter Parker relationship that's growing. And that's where it grows in the second one. So I like that.
Yeah. I'm a huge Homecoming fan.
Yeah, that was a good one. Do you want to know? I really feel like I don't remember that one very much. I saw it in theaters though. I just put it out there. My sister's ex-boyfriend at the time took me for my birthday because my sister had to work, so she couldn't join us. But he took me to go see it because that was my favorite superhero. Yeah. And accidentally took me to the 3D movie. So it was in 3D. So I feel like my brain decided not to take in. So I've watched clips from it since, and then it's like, oh yeah, jogs my memory. But I should probably watch the movie in full again because I don't. Yeah. I feel like it was just a lot happening because it was in 3D.
Yeah.
But that's a fun experience.
I really love that one. And No Way Home is great too. Yeah. I think I saw all of them in theater. Oh yeah? That's when I started going to see Marvel movies. That's really cool. Anyway, sorry. But yeah. Andrew Garfield. We saw No Way Home together. We did see No Way Home together. Yeah. We went with the group. We did. And then we also saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as a group. I didn't like that movie. Yeah. And then we saw Thor Love and Thunder. Just me and you. Not a great film. Great experience. The evolution of our relationship. Anyways. The group got smaller. So I really feel like though Tom Holland's Spider-Man is so different. Because he's literally playing a kid. He is. Where the other are playing a kid, but they're not really kids. Yeah, I would agree with that. I like Andrew's take. I know people don't necessarily love Andrew's take on Peter Parker, but that's the one I like the best. You probably relate a little bit. I related a lot. He's a little bit of a film nerd. Yeah, he was a film nerd. He hit with his little film camera in the dark room. But he was cool. Yeah. He was the cool Peter Parker. Yeah. Tobey was more of the quirky, geeky, nerdy one. I definitely crushed on him when I was young. Tobey Maguire? No. Oh, Andrew Garfield. Sorry, I was back on the cool Spider-Man. He's definitely. Still? No, maybe a little. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Just it's just one of those things where when I see him, it's like my 14-year-old self watching the. Yeah. And you know what I mean? To wrap this section up. Yeah, sorry. No. We could talk about Spider-Man for the whole podcast. No, just to wrap this up, give me your top 3 Spider-Man movies. Number 1 is The Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, with Andrew Garfield, 2012. I don't really... Please don't come for me. But I'm a young person. I don't really love the Tobey's movies. Even Spider-Man 2. With Doc Ock. That one's great. Good. That one's good. But I have to I don't know. I just... I think
a lot of these, the thing with Spider-Man is because it's my favorite, it's connected to sentimental value. Like, like there's sentimental. So like going, like The Amazing Spider-Man is my favorite.
Yeah.
Because it was the first Spider-Man movie I ever saw. But then like going to the movies in theater make Tom Holland's Spider-Man's like a little bit, it's just all experience based really at that point. So I would say The Amazing Spider-Man, No Way Home, and then maybe that second one or Far From Home.
Okay.
I have to watch both of them again and then make a final review. What about you?
Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite Spider-Man movie. Across the Spider-Verse is my second favorite.
I completely forgot about them.
Yeah, you left out good old Miles Morales.
Oh my golly. What kind of Spider-Man fan am I?
I know. So
I really did like Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That's my third.
Into the Spider-Verse.
I'm making that my third.
Into the Spider-Verse is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I would say Across the Spider-Verse is probably my second favorite movie. The Amazing Spider-Man is probably my third favorite Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
With an honorable mention of Spider-Man 2 because the Dashboard Confessional song in the credits is amazing.
Okay. I have to tell a story.
Oh, no.
And then we'll wrap up this section. This was literally supposed to be like a minute.
Like a minute and
you guys already know we talk about a lot. Yeah. So back in the day, right before Bryce and I started dating, he came over to watch a movie with me. And we chose The Amazing Spider-Man.
We watched it on your little laptop. The way Mark Webb intended.
Well, there's a scene in it that gets Bryce every time. He starts crying.
It's a great scene. It's the scene on the bridge where Andrew swings down and the kid is in the minivan and he's like, put the mask on, kid. It'll make you strong.
And Bryce cries.
Oh, it's so good.
But this boy wouldn't let me see him cry. He literally, we were like sitting next to, so he was on this side and I was on this side, you were on this side. He was like looking away. You were like, I was like, what is going on?
That scene gets me every time. It's so good.
And then I realized he was crying and I was like, you're fine. You can cry. He was like, I can't.
I wasn't that dramatic.
Okay. So we're going to go into our main topic today. Let me get back to my notes here. And we thought that it would be fitting, just because of where we're at in life right now, to do a little bit of a conversation on mental health as a creative. Now, this is going to be part one of probably many, because we hope to have guests on that we can talk to about it, as well as we're just going to talk through, where we're at in life. So sometimes mental health. Yeah, it keeps
evolving. So,
so it'll be brought back up. So we're going to talk about mental health as a creative. But I just wanted to make a statement before we started. Sometimes we are going to refer to this when we're struggling in our mental health as maybe a poor mental state. But that's not meant to offend anyone who is struggling with mental health, because we know all too well what it means to struggle and what it means to be depressed or anxious. Those are our experiences. So when we just say a poor mental state, it just means that we would like there to be improvement. We'd like to get out of the struggle. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I feel like sometimes the terminology around mental health can be hard to say. I don't hate, that's a strong word. I don't always like when it's mental health issues, because it's people are struggling with this, including myself, every day. And whenever you make it it's an issue, it can kind of make it harder. So I just kind of want to put that out there. I don't know if that makes sense. And then also we're not licensed professionals on the conversation of mental health. So if you're really struggling with mental health, obviously please go talk to someone, seek professional help, therapy, whatever it is, get help. But we just don't have that ability to do that. We're just here to kind of talk about our own experience and hopefully you can relate to it because we're just everyday people talking about our experience with mental health. So.
Exactly.
All right. So I have a few questions, or a lot, I don't know, questions to ask you.
Yeah.
So let's just start with, where are you at in your relationship with mental health and creating? So maybe start with where you're at mentally.
I would say that mentally I'm doing a lot better than I was.
Mm-hmm.
There for a couple months now, I've been battling more severe depression than I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
I go through seasons of darker depression and deeper depression, and these past couple months definitely have been that. But this past week, I feel like I've kind of turned a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like over the roughest parts. I can see some light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, so I would say that I'm doing better now than I was.
Yeah. I think for me in my struggle, so I struggle with anxiety. Really, I've been kind of struggling long term with it.
Yeah.
Since October. I've had it since I was a kid.
Yes.
Just didn't know. And so there were times where it was harder than others. There were times where it was like I barely noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, since October of 2022 till now has been one of the longest times in my life where it's been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But I've also improved a lot from that beginning where it like really started up again. And so right now I actually feel like I'm in a pretty good place, but I'm in a place where I'm aware that it could get triggered and that it would be a big wave of it again very easily.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in like a vulnerable place, but I'm doing good.
Yes.
I feel like right now where I'm at, I'm just trying to learn to maintain it, because if any of our listeners' goal is to like fully heal from something that you're struggling with mentally, like that's great. But I feel like for me personally, I've realized that it's less of, is my anxiety ever going to go away? But it's more of, how do I maintain it?
Yeah.
Because it's been something that has been predominantly my whole life.
Yeah.
And so how do I maintain it? And a lot of times with the anxiety that I experience, like it's uncomfortable. And so I'm learning how to change my perspective on things to embrace that uncomfortable and to not let it paralyze me, but to figure out when I'm feeling this way, how do I operate through it? So that's where I'm doing well, but
yeah. And what are some of the symptoms of your anxiety? Like whenever it's at its worst point, what are some of the things that like happen?
Yeah. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
And anxiety is it's a word,
a blanket term that people throw
it's a
around.
word thrown around a lot. And also, I think, at least in my experience and my knowledge, anxiety looks different for every person.
Yeah.
And so this is just my like unique experience. But for me, like, and there's people I know who go through seasons of anxiety. There's people who use the word anxiety as worry. But for me, it's more of something that kind of paralyzes me. It is really hard to explain, but it's like my mind kind of like takes over and loses control.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I refer to my anxiety as if it's like another person, because it just feels like it's foreign in my brain.
Yeah.
And I think I heard this on a mental health podcast, I believe, where they explained anxiety as like your brain is in fight or flight mode and your brain's telling you there's a threat. And so you're in that kind of intense feeling, but there's not actually a threat. And that's kind of how I would describe my anxiety as well, where I feel like I have to, like, something's not okay, or a lot of it's like fear-based stuff as well that makes me feel like there's a threat or something like that. And so kind of how anxiety is expressed in me is when it's at its worst, it would be like anxiety attacks, which for me, a lot of times are like intense stomach aches, while in addition to like, while my stomach hurts, I'm also shaking. My whole body's shaking. My heart rate's up. I can't really breathe. I'm crying usually. And just this like extreme pain in my stomach that I can't, like, I just can't.
Yeah.
So, and when I was younger, a lot of times I would then get sick. So we spent some times on the bathroom floor together, and and it's paralyzing in the sense of like, when it's that bad, like I can't, like even the next day, like I can't do much.
And a couple of those times I remember that we've been on the bathroom floor in the middle of the night. There wasn't necessarily one trigger point. There, if you look closely, there's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
But it wasn't one situation that really set you off. It was a buildup, and then it just happens.
Yeah.
And then
a lot of times when it gets to that point, it's because there's like, it has been built. And it's just like, a lot of times I just have to feel it, and then I can move forward in a healthy way. Yeah, it's like every couple months I have one.
Yeah. And see, I don't deal with things the way that you do.
Yeah.
You need to feel to move past.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you're having an anxiety attack, I'll be like trying to calm you down, but you need to like feel the whole like, extent of it.
If I don't,
it will still linger.
Yeah, I can't move forward. Yeah. But so there's that part, which is like the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
But then like something that's maybe a little bit more relatable, or that has a clear trigger, is like when I go to doctor's appointments. Like my hands get shaky, I get sweaty, my heart is racing. And the last time I was at the doctor, they thought the machine to check my heart rate was broken because it was so high. And so that's a trigger. I don't really know why I get anxious at the doctor's. Like, it's just.
Did you ever have any like negative experiences at the doctor's, or is it just white coat syndrome kind of?
I don't know. And honestly, it's kind of like, so when I was little, I did have one bad experience, but that was with getting shots. So that's where my fear of needles comes in.
Yeah.
I'm a complicated person. But for the doctors, like when I was in high school, would not have gotten anxious going to the doctors. It's so weird. It just changes over time. But as like in this season, I do get very, very anxious. But it just depends. But yeah, so that's like another, like that would be an expression of it that like it's relatable. People get anxious and nervous to go to the doctors. But then sometimes it's just this like belief that my brain is lying to me. And there's a lot more details that we could go into. I'm just trying to give like a summary, but just like, for example, if I can see that a door is locked, but my brain, I feel like my brain's lying to me and it's not actually locked, even though it's right there and it's
or
locked.
Like whenever you have your hair curling iron or something, or the oven, you can see that it's unplugged or off, and that's not hot, but your brain is telling you that it is.
That's more of my day-to-day struggle. I don't always have the anxiety attacks. I don't always, get super nervous for things.
But those are consistent.
But those are consistent where, I mean, that was from when I was really little too. So, of just like, is everything off? Is everything unplugged?
Are the doors locked?
So those are kind of, it's something that, and it's just, it's hard because it kind of just controls you in a way. I don't know if any of that really makes sense. I think
it does.
Yeah, it's just, and there's times where like where especially over this past year, because it's been the worst that I think it's ever been in my life, of like I can't eat. Yeah. Because I am afraid of getting sick. Like going out to eat would be.
There for a while we couldn't go out to eat because
I was afraid, because I had an experience where I did get sick, and my brain connected it, and it was just hard for me to go out to eat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like just makes it hard to go drive. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because it's just like all these things in your mind, and your mind's telling you these things, and it feels not yourself, but it's just, yeah.
And there's a lot of times that it is like it's brought on by worrying or fear.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where it's just pure anxiety,
Yeah.
and it kind of attacks out of nowhere.
Yeah. So it's complicated, and people who have anxiety might relate to that or might not, because I think it's so specific to each person.
Yeah.
I think for anything, but the way that you express it and the way that your body processes it is, because I think it impacts your entire
Everyone's
body.
brain chemistry is different, so their anxiety is going to look different person to person.
But yeah, so that's what I kind of mean, as to me it's a kind of takes over sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you want to give any kind of perspective on the depression that you experienced, which I know is hard?
Yeah, it's really hard to explain. It really started around middle school.
Yeah.
My depression, and I did deal with anxiety in a certain season of my life, but that hasn't been a consistent thing. Like every now and again, if I'm really getting overwhelmed by life, then the anxiety will pop its head out. But
It's
usually,
like stress-based
it's more of a
anxiety.
stress-based anxiety. But depression's been one of those things that has been pretty consistent throughout my life, and it's really hard to explain because, and you know better than anybody because you want me to explain it to you as your husband, and I can't.
Yeah.
All I can kind of say for my depression is it feels like I'm in a pit or a hole, and it's just black, and there's no light, and it's very paralyzing. Sometimes, and we'll probably get into this later with some of your other questions, but a lot of my life I've been able to take the depression and being in a depressed state and really create out of it, which is different than what this past season was.
So it just changes.
It changes
based on the season. You're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually I create some of my best things out of depression, and I did some light research on the internet. I didn't write any notes, but I did some light research just to make sure I wasn't off base. But a lot of people that they've studied, scientists, find that whenever they talk to creatives, they feel that they've made their best work while in a depressed state.
Wow.
Or a mental health state,
Yeah.
if that's anxiety, creating out of anxiety or depression or whatever you have. They feel like they've made their best work out of that.
Yeah.
And for most of my life, I feel like that reigns true for me. But it's really hard to describe my depression other than I just feel empty and alone and just kind of dead inside. An example would be we could be at a party or a happy event with friends and family, and everybody's laughing and talking and all that, and I feel like I'm just sitting here and the world is kind of moving around me, and it's like, have you ever seen those time lapses of people walk in New York City and like people are walking by them? I feel like that person that everybody's kind of walking around, everybody's living their life, and I'm like viewing it from a third person perspective.
Yeah. It is interesting, like when we try to dialogue about this, because I feel like a lot of people, and maybe this is why a lot of people identify as anxious, because anxiety is almost like it is feeling, like you are feeling something, and it's almost like your senses, your nerves, your feelings are overstimulated. And so when we describe it, we can describe we're feeling all these things because it's overstimulated. Whereas like feelings when you're depressed would
It's
be like
lack of feeling.
dormant. Like it's like you don't feel, so how can you describe it? Which is why I think it's hard to sometimes communicate where you're at when you are depressed, because
I don't
and
even
also
know how
why
I feel.
sometimes we it's hard for us because I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what you're feeling? I'm feeling a billion things right now because I'm overstimulated. And you're like, I don't feel anything.
I feel nothing. Yeah.
So it is interesting, like the differences in that. So I will say this. I'll just put this out there into the world. You have been diagnosed.
Yeah.
I have not.
I've been on
I'm self-diagnosed.
I've been on medication. Yeah. I've seen multiple therapists.
Yeah. I need to.
Yeah.
I need to get diagnosed, but I think mine's pretty obvious when like we break through, from my childhood on. It's kind of like a case, like a clear case of.
Yeah.
But I definitely need to seek some help in that area, which we're pursuing. So
yes.
Anyways, you talked a little bit about how it impacts your ability to create, but right now where you're at mentally, how is that impacting your ability to create?
It's better
right
now. It wasn't there for a couple months, but as I said earlier, I kind of turned the corner this past week or so, and I started storyboarding and writing more this week. So I'm able to use some of the feelings I had during that season to put into it, but it changes every time it gets really bad. And this time there's not as much inspiration coming out of that season than normal, but it is inspiring me.
Yeah. But you have had seasons where while you're in that season of feeling deep depression, that you do create out of that season, correct? So what does that look like? Like, what does creating look like during that season?
I would say, so starting in more of my middle school, high school depression era, music was my outlet. I play guitar. I've played guitar for a long time, and music was my creative outlet. So I loved emo music and pop punk, and I was that emo kid. And I think,
which there's apparently no pictures to prove this.
I think that. So I just wrote this down.
Yeah.
That because I thought about it and I knew I'd forget if I didn't write it down. But I wrote, I like to feel, like, period. I like to feel things. So if that's really emotional songs, like hardcore rock music or rap or emo music, I like to feel the emotion, and I like sad movies or horror movies, something that is a huge emotion. And I think it's interesting because I long to feel, because whenever I'm in a depressed state, I want to feel, so that helps me create art. But then whenever I do feel, it's the inspiration doesn't flow as easily. But yeah, so
it's kind of like those things bring out an extreme of that feeling.
Yes.
Because like we said, like you struggle with depression all the time, but it just shows itself in different ways.
Yeah.
So do you feel like all the time, to some extent, you have trouble feeling, which is why you try to you look to music and to film and stuff to have that like more extreme feeling.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. That sometimes it's very extreme, but generally it's always there. So I do enjoy the more extreme mediums of art because it makes me feel something. Yeah. That's why I can cry during movies, and why I cry during music and certain things. So like my middle school, high school era was very much music focused, and I was able to express myself through listening to certain types of music or playing certain types of music. Then in college, I was an English major, so writing was really my outlet then. I've wrote a lot of poetry that kind of helped me cope with different things I was going through. And film has always been one that's always kind of helped me cope. So I feel like this past season, I wasn't feeling a lot, but I was able to feel through film a little bit more than other seasons of my life.
So it's like whatever you're almost consuming to feel is then what's inspiring you to create.
I would say so, yeah.
And I think it is interesting though that you said that like in different seasons your expression of your creative expression was different because it was music then writing then and so I think it's interesting because it can all shift of whatever is inspiring you in that moment. So you feel like you have to find ways to feel so that then you can create.
Yeah.
And whenever you look back on those things that you've created, whether it's music, poems, films, whatever, what are your thoughts looking back on those things that you've created? Are you proud of them? Is it hard to think back to them?
Music that I wrote while I was in that depressed state, I look back on it, I'm like, that was just crap. So I can't accurately gauge it. But listening to music that helped me get through those times, I still love all of that. So there's that. Right before we sat down, I looked through some of the poems I wrote in college. It's interesting to read them because a lot of them still resonate with me. So it's kind of hard to read them, but it's not something that I create and then I can't ever look back. I know that sometimes people create things and then they can't look back at the art they created out of a certain season. I feel like I still can.
But you can't always share them, right?
No.
Because there's a lot of poems you haven't let me see.
Yeah. They're for me.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's like, do you feel like when you were in those seasons that what you created was for you?
Yeah.
And
definitely.
that allows you to express what you were feeling or maybe not feeling or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially with the poetry. Those were for me in the time and they'll always kind of stick with me.
Yeah. And so do you feel like there are seasons though, which you kind of just had where depression does paralyze you from creating?
Definitely.
And like, what does that look like? And why do you think it's different?
I think it's different now because I've really dealt with 3 really bad seasons and they could range from a couple months to years. I think what's different about this season is I have responsibilities and I've felt because I have those responsibilities, my brain will lie to me or whatever and say things like you're a failure or like I'm just feeling empty, no inspiration from like this place of depression where before I didn't have as many responsibilities. I wasn't married. So it was easier to, I don't know if easier, but it was just a different season of life. So I didn't have as much on my back, I guess, which isn't a bad thing. I enjoy being married to you, but it just
changes. It puts pressure on it.
Yeah. And whenever you're creating as a job, it kind of takes some of the joy out of the creating when you are forced to create because that's your source of income.
Yeah. Do you feel like another part of that is because you've talked about in these past seasons where you were able to create, you had an outlet, like something you were passionate about in that season. I don't really feel like you had that this time. Like you haven't found like like in this season, what that outlet for you personally is. Like not to make for other people, because there's plenty of that you want to do to show, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, the writing was for you.
Yeah.
So like what you haven't found what in this season is for you.
I think that's one of the problems with why it's been so lonely in my mind. Because when I was writing music, I could write music that was just for me. When I was writing poetry, it could be just for me. Now, since filmmaking and photography is our job, it's harder for me to feel inspired to even just pick up a camera or something to make for me.
Yeah.
Because if I did that for 8 hours a day, I don't want to go and keep doing it.
Which like I totally relate to as well, in the sense of once I started to do those things that were fun for me professionally.
Yeah.
For me, I just can't do it professionally. for you, it's like, it is something that you want to do because you're passionate about it, but also you have to find what's yours in
exactly.
that. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I don't really have much to like say on this topic because we're still discovering. I'm still on my creative journey, which we've talked about. So I feel like I'm still trying to figure out, and I can't really look back and say like, oh, I was creating in that season of anxiety. It's just we're different in that way. But I do feel like there have been times where creating, I haven't been able to just like create things because of some really hard seasons. The only time I can really think of though, where it's been like, where it was really hard was during like the first, I've said here before that I like to make gifts for people, handmade gifts for Christmas and stuff for people. And the year that my parents got divorced, that was the first holidays where they were separated. I didn't make anything for people that year because it's hard. Like we all can feel that whenever, even if it's not just a mental health thing, but it's just emotional season or tiring season or hard season. It's hard to then like to create is to put your heart and soul into something. Yeah. If you don't have the emotional capacity to do that, it can be really hard. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's, it's just interesting. I also think I'm also trying to figure out what it looks like to create for myself too, and to use art, to use creativity as a therapeutic thing. This is like the first time in my life that I've even been open to that idea. I was going to ask you, do you think there's, in the past, you haven't really recognized anxiety, period, like just growing up. But now that you've recognized that you deal with anxiety and all that comes with that, do you feel like there's a creative outlet for you right now? Or are you still trying to discover what that could be? Yeah. I'm still trying to discover that. But I will say this, just to put more context to what we're talking about. Growing up, I did not say that I had anxiety or recognize it. Yeah. It wasn't until I started serving with a church group that talked a lot about mental health that I realized, some of what these people are saying, like, you could relate to. That's me. Yeah. And like had talked to the leader there and stuff and ended up leading a group there. But like, and basically was like, oh wait, that's me. That's it. And that was like 2 years ago. So like I'm on the journey of figuring out my mental health. So, which is honestly why I think it's been so bad, because it's like, I'm figuring it out. You're figuring out 21 years of anxiety. Yeah. And realizing that the way that I operate isn't necessarily like normal. Yeah. And you've also been, for the longest time, acting and living as an extrovert when you're really a severe introvert. Oh my gosh. That's a topic for us to cover. Introverts as creative versus extroverts as creatives. Because I am 100% an introvert. Severe introvert. Yes. But you acted as... Yeah. I thought I was an extrovert. An extrovert for the longest time. But I was like tired, which we'll get into in a second. But I think right now where I'm at is like, if I have a feeling to express or a thought process, like I can do it through like art of some sort. And I think there's been like a fear in doing that prior to this point, because even like you had gotten me, I'm a big journaler too. But I started like, it's interesting. Yeah. It's so interesting. This is when all of this was happening. I journaled the other day and I decided to listen to, normally I listen to music that has like lyrics, and I decided to listen to like calming instrumental music. Yeah. And all of a sudden felt very inspired. Okay. Like, I don't know I know that music moves me a lot, but like, I think that idea of just it's almost like having like a soundtrack behind your thoughts that made me like, oh, like this could turn into something. Your main character energy. Yeah. Right. So I like started to like write, and I started to realize like I can be honest with my feelings. That's the other thing too. Like, I have a really hard time. I think I'm learning honesty for myself.
Yeah.
Of like, when I journal, that's for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can be honest on those pages.
Yeah.
Because I have a hard time even being honest there.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was writing, I was like, wait, I can be honest here. And I can say things that like are bold. And one day I'll be like, I don't feel that way now.
But that's how you're feeling today.
That's how I felt in that moment. And so I think that brought, for some reason, that music like triggered out some sort of like honesty in me.
Yeah.
And then I started to like just envision my mind in a way. Like it was like I could picture what I was feeling.
That's really
and
cool.
So I kind of drew it out. I'm not a drawer at all. But I kind of just sketched it out because it was like, and doing that was almost healing to me because it was like the concept. I'll just kind of share a little bit of the concept, but it's also for me. So, but it's this idea that like, no matter what I'm experiencing in my brain, no matter like a lot of times, like I said, I view anxiety as like another person or like a darkness, but there's still beauty that can come out of that. And so I kind of drew that out. That's
really cool because it's taking something from your mental and putting it on paper or putting into something tangible.
Yeah. And I think it was it's the first time that I was like truly honest.
Yeah.
And I think the more honest I get with myself, the more honestly I can create. And that creating will no longer be for me to perform in a way or to make something that other people like, but creating will become an honest expression of myself.
That's really beautiful.
So I'm in like a season of figuring out how to be honest so that I can create honestly. And yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's really insightful.
I just had like, this is all happening in real time.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think I'm on that journey because even like you had gotten me like a year ago or something, like the Bible that was blank, like on the outside that you could draw on.
Yeah.
Because you knew I'd like that. But the idea of me free drawing scares me.
Yeah.
Because I would have to be vulnerable in that way because it would all be coming from my heart.
Yeah.
And I think I struggle. I think I struggle in creative ways to be vulnerable because honestly, creating is to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So
do you also feel that kind of goes hand in hand with like maybe having a fear of failing?
Oh yeah. Yep. Like if it doesn't, I think it's like one of those things like I had this thought when I was journaling and I don't know if I feel like I did this in like elementary or middle school art where you had an assignment, but you weren't allowed to erase. Did you ever do that in art? And I'm like, that's where I think I need to be in life right now.
Yeah.
Where I do it, but I'm not allowed to erase it. And that when I make mistakes, I'm talking metaphorically, but also like if I'm talking my life and also creating, that if I make mistakes, you learn how to make that mistake part of the bigger picture. Does that make sense?
I love that.
Instead of, I need to erase that. It's like, no, that mistake leads to this, which leads to this. And ultimately that makes
without
the picture.
That mistake, we wouldn't have the rest of the picture. So I think
that's where I'm at in my...
That's really good.
I guess that's where I'm at, like where it's like, I need to not erase.
Boom, that's just that's
I really
it.
didn't think I had much to share, but apparently,
that's it.
Once you get me going,
yeah.
I never know what'll go.
That's it right there.
Okay.
Dang.
So we've talked about seasons where mental health can actually paralyze you, and we've talked about what it looks like to embrace it, right?
Yeah.
And to create out of it. But what do you think we're going to kind of talk about here, like creating out of mental health struggles, which we just talked about really, versus when does creating actually lead to struggles with mental health?
Yeah.
So basically, when does it lead to burnout?
Yeah.
And can creating lead to burnout? When does it and all of that?
I think I've burnt out multiple times. And every time I've burnt out, it's because I wasn't passionate anymore about what I was creating. So there was a season where I was doing a ton of weddings and I burned out at the end, because at the beginning you're super stoked to shoot weddings and make people's stories come alive. But then if you book yourself where you're having 3 weddings a weekend, eventually you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at, where you are no longer functioning as this creative powerhouse. You are now just somebody holding a camera that you just got to get it done.
Yeah.
And
when you're turning out too much product.
When your heart's no longer in it, that's not good. Another time is I worked at a church alongside you for a while, and when you start to do the same thing over and over again and you start to lose the passion and heart behind why you're doing it, and you start to not push yourself creatively, then that's not good. So, and things like that where you're losing the heart behind it, then you're just creating to create, and you just feel like a machine rather than an actual human that has creative ideas. That leads to burnout and just poor mental health, or if you're taking on too much work, then you're overworking yourself. Even if you are passionate about the projects you're working on, if you're taking on too much, you burn out, you get tired, which affects your mental health. You're drinking a lot of caffeine. Like that, it goes hand in hand with my mental health journey. So I don't know if that answers your question. I just spewed a bunch of things.
I think that this is a topic that can stand alone in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I definitely think like that idea of putting out so much, we're just gonna say product, like when you're just, okay, here's a video, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And so it's like you just kind of you're, like you said, it's like you're operating like a machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a struggle for creatives, especially creatives who are doing it as a career.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times you're often like in a situation or in a workplace or something like that, which we have plans to have a deeper conversation in the future about this with some people. But like you're expected to have like a fast turnover rate, but they don't understand that they're interacting with creatives and that makes it difficult. And so when you're in an environment where people don't appreciate the like creative process and they just expect, well, what do you mean? You should be able to do this.
Yeah.
Aren't you good at this stuff?
Exactly.
Well, it's not like that. It's not that simple where it's like, yeah, you're very talented and you're good at it, but you're also a human being who's passionate about things, who needs to have a unique spin on what they're creating. And whenever there's pressure to do it so quickly, you can't, and you lose that passion and you lose that motivation and you burn out. Yeah.
And I think sometimes like we own our own business doing this stuff, and you know, whenever you start out, people are like, oh, you gotta grind, you gotta do 1 billion different jobs, you gotta take on every client you can. But that's not good for the end product. If you want to get better as a creative and have your quality go higher, then you can't take on more work. Yes, you need to take on more work because of money, but if you want your quality to get better, you need to like really focus on what you do have, and leave room for breaks, and room to grow as a human being. And honestly, it's not only just about the quality of the final product, and I feel like a lot of creatives need to hear this, is about quality of life too. Yeah. And that what you create is not all that you are. And I think a lot of times creatives struggle with that, where it's like, my identity is what I can do, because so many people see that and are attracted to that, and that is then who you are. Whereas like there is more to your life than that. You are a human being who also needs to protect themselves mentally. I've definitely felt that. I mean, I there's definitely been seasons of my life where I don't know if people are my friends just because I can offer them A, B, or C, or if someone is being nice to me because, they want me to play guitar, or they want me to shoot a video for cheaper or something. And then I just become a product.
Yeah. Yeah. Remembering like the people behind these things that you want them to create, and that you get to have a unique perspective on something, and your look is unique because it's you, but also you are an individual who has more than just what you can make.
Yeah. Check on your creative friends.
Yeah. Check on them, celebrate them, and check on them.
And pay them full price. Don't ask for the friends and family discount.
Because they work hard.
Yes.
But yeah, so let's move into the next state. When you are in a place, maybe it's of burnout, depression, anxiety, you're not creating, what are the tools that you have to move you into a better mental state? Because there's times where creating is what gets you out, right? But if you can't create, what other tools do you feel like? And honestly, you kind of answered this, but you can answer.
I think sometimes I have to just sit in it for a while, even though in the moment I'm trying to do everything I can to get out. Sometimes I just have to let it be and not try. And that can be dangerous if you don't try and then you just stay there.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes I just need to feel it for a day or two or a week, and then that can give me the time I need to kind of recalibrate and then figure out what steps I do need to take moving forward. And yeah.
Do you feel like, because you kind of mentioned this with when you are inspired in those seasons, but do you feel like if you can't create, does it help you to kind of take in other people's creations?
Definitely.
So like if you can't create, like watch movies, listen to music, read, those types of things, just helps you kind of get back to a place where you might be able to.
Yes, definitely. Whenever I was doing music, listening to music definitely helped, and it still does. And writing helped. Reading different poetry and stuff like that helped me recognize that I'm not the only one that feels this way. And this specific season, watching movies and television shows, honestly, Beef was a great show that kind of, I don't know, it just so happened that whenever we watched Beef, which we were super late to the game of Beef, but whenever we watched Beef, that kind of coincided with me turning the corner. And I don't know, just consuming content that's purposeful and that I can feel like I can relate to, I guess, or feel inspired by.
And kind of another question, which maybe there's really no answer to this, but and maybe we asked this to somebody else too, but when you are creating for a career, but you're feeling burned out, but you don't have a choice to not create. Like, what's your advice for people in that situation? I don't even know if there's...
I don't know if there's a good answer.
It's probably specific to each individual.
I think in my case scenario, you know that you have to keep creating because it's your job. It's your source of income. But I think in the moments where you don't have to create, you're breaking. And I also think having somebody in your life that you can be honest with and talk to that knows you better than you know yourself. Just to kind of walk through it with you.
Yeah. Maybe have people in your life that care about you more than what you can do.
Yes. And also
have a good community.
That too. And also seek counseling or therapy if you're in a place that you feel like you just can't get out of, or even if you're just struggling a little bit. Like, it's always good to talk to people.
Yeah, maybe sometimes it's even being like proactive to avoid the burnout. But again, conversations for other days.
Yes.
So I just want to make like a final statement as we close up this segment that, you had said that a lot of the creators, I don't know what your statistic was, but sometimes you can create very beautiful pieces out of those times of struggle. But we kind of wanted to put it out there that even though creating is great and it's great for when you're struggling mentally, but it's meant to help you get out of that season, to help you process that season. And so we want to use it to help us in that season, but we don't want to put ourselves in situations where we then struggle with mental health so that we create. We don't bring it on ourselves so that we can create, because there's things that you're going to create when you're struggling. And there's things that you're going to create when you're not. And so we have to learn to create in all seasons of life. But what changes, what's the difference, is the how, the why, and the what that we create shifts based on where we're at mentally. Yeah. So that's our wrap on our first talk about mental health.
Part 1 of
we were
many more sections.
Very vulnerable there, putting ourselves out there, trying to be honest with you guys, because that's what we want to try to be. But I will just make a statement, like, it's hard to put out some of those struggles onto the internet. So be kind.
Just be kind to everyone.
Yeah.
Just period.
You never know what they're feeling or dealing with. All right. So usually at this point in the episode, we would do the 10 questions. 10 questions?
The rapid questions.
The rapid fire questions with each other or our guests, but we've already asked each other the questions, so we thought we'd do a little game this time. So here's our game. I have the instructions here. We each have 10 questions we're going to ask each other. Each question consists of a quote from a movie that we love. We have 5 movies that the quotes will be from. So Bryce gave me 5 of his favorite, some of his favorite, or the movies that he loves. And then I gave him some of the movies that I love and that we know pretty well. So each movie will coordinate with 2 quotes. So for each question, we'll be given a quote, and we have to say what movie it's from. That gives us a point. Yes. Another point will be who says it in the movie. And then the third point that we can get is if we can describe the scene in which it's being said, which we're going to have to trust each other, because I'm not going to lie, I don't know what some of these scenes are from. So yeah, whoever at the end has the most points wins.
I'm nervous. My brain. Oh, okay, yeah. My brain's pretty mushy because we've recorded
just been talking a lot. But also, I will put this out there. Bryce is really good at quoting movies randomly. So I have to say that I did sometimes try to choose.
You picked the most obscure thing.
Challenging quotes because I wanted to challenge him. So don't give him a hard time if he can't choose them, because I tried to choose hard ones. Okay. I can already see things will get worse before they get better, and some will seize the chance to grab everything they can. I don't think this one's that hard, though.
I honestly forget which movies I gave you.
Can I?
Say the movie.
Interstellar. Okay. Good Will Hunting. Batman, like the Batman. Empire Strikes Back, and Past Lives.
Okay, can you say the quote one more time?
Yep. I can already see things will get worse before they get better, and some will seize the chance to grab everything they can.
Is it from the Batman?
Yes.
I think it's Batman talking to Alfred.
It is the Batman talking. It is Batman talking, but I don't know who he's talking to.
Okay. I don't quite remember.
Maybe we shouldn't have done that third point, because we're gonna be like, I don't know.
I don't quite remember the scene or who he was talking to.
So 2 points then.
Yeah, 2 points.
All right. I put it 2 next.
All right, your turn.
This is not going to be good, though.
Here we go.
Okay.
Leave it to you to use big words when you're smashed.
Wait, can you give me the...
So the movies that you sent me... Let's see.
Can I get like 2 guesses? Will you give
High School Musical 3.
Yeah.
The Proposal. The Amazing Spider-Man. 10 Things I Hate About You. And The Last Song.
Is it 10 Things I Hate About You?
It is. Who says it?
Oh, the guy who plays the Joker.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heath Ledger. Okay, cool. 2 points for you.
I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
Also, that's kind of like no one's getting smashed in High School Musical. So, and that's where I know where it's at. It's whenever she's on the swing and then she throws up, right?
I haven't seen that movie in so long.
So if you know that movie, because it's a great one.
I'm trusting your judgment.
She like hits her head when she's like dancing on the table, and then he takes her to the swing and she like says something to him, and then she throws up.
So you get 3 points.
Well, give me 2 because I don't know if that's accurate.
Okay.
You'll have bad times, but it'll always wake you up to the good stuff you weren't paying attention to.
So easy. Good Will Hunting. It's Robin Williams' character to Matt Damon. He's in his counseling office.
Yeah. I'll give you 3 for that. See,
that's so good.
I did both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's such a great movie. My Prom is Wherever You Are.
Oh, okay. High School Musical 3. And you can give me 3 points for that because that's Troy talking to Gabriella. And that's when he goes to, I think it's Stanford. That's where she's at because she wasn't going to come back to prom. And she's like, what are you doing here, Wildcat? And he's like, my prom is wherever you are. And then they do the reprise of Can I Have This Dance? I feel like I should get 5 points for that.
Oh, goodness. Okay, moving on.
Okay. You must unlearn what you have learned.
So that's Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah.
Is it Yoda?
Yeah.
To Luke Skywalker.
Probably.
Yeah. In Dagobah, probably. Don't give me that 3rd point because...
Okay, just 2.
Yeah, because I don't remember the scene, but I do...
I was like, all of these quotes were Yoda, and I was like, they all sound like Yoda, but this one was the one that didn't really sound like that.
Okay, cool. Don't let him out. The Eagles will snatch him.
Oh, that's from The Proposal.
Who says it?
I don't think I know. It's not one of the main, like, it's not the one of the...
No.
Is it Betty White's character?
Is that the grandma? Mm-hmm. Then yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot Betty White was in that movie.
Yeah, and she's like, does a weird chant thing.
I love Betty White.
Okay, you can give me 2 for that.
Okay. I'm not keeping track. Oh, I thought you were keeping track for both of us.
No, for you. Oh, you gotta go back. I have 2, 3, and 2. If this continues, it won't be long before you've nothing left. Go ahead.
It's from the Batman.
Yeah.
And it's Alfred to Bruce Wayne. He's like, if this continues, it won't be long before you have nothing left.
Should I give you 3 for that or 2?
It's in the Batcave. Oh, it's such a great scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I've never watched that movie. So
you should. Greg Fraser
know if these were
shot
like
it.
Iconic lines. I had another quote.
Okay.
Would this have been harder? What I'm doing is my family's legacy.
That's Bruce Wayne.
But like, would you have known that was from the Batman?
Maybe if I thought about it. Secrets have a cost. They're not free. Not now, not ever.
What were my movies again?
High School Musical 3.
Is that The Amazing Spider-Man?
It is.
Okay.
Who says it?
Secrets have a cost. Was it Gwen's dad who says it?
Is that your final answer?
Is it wrong?
It is wrong.
Who says it?
It's Aunt May.
Oh.
He's like all
Fair.
battered up, like he's torn up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Give me 1 for that.
Okay.
All right, your turn. You make my world so much bigger, and I'm wondering if I do the same for you.
Oh, that's Past Lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's Arthur talking to Nora. Mm-hmm. They're in bed.
Are they? I don't know where they are.
because that's the same scene where he's like, you dream in Korean.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you 3 for that. All right, next.
Just because you're beautiful, that doesn't mean that you can't treat people like they don't matter.
Is that from The Proposal? No. I didn't officially.
Okay.
What are my movies again? The Amazing Spider-Man, High School Musical. Oh, it's 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes.
And Camaryn says it.
Yes. So do you remember the scene?
Is it after the party? You don't even
I don't
know.
know.
I think it's after the party. Or, no, I don't remember.
Okay, so 2.
We're still pioneers. We barely begun. Our greatest accomplishments cannot be behind us because our destiny lies above us.
That's interesting because that's from Interstellar. They're sitting on the front porch. Who says it, though? It's between the grandfather and Coop. I think Coop says it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. I was like...
My brain was catching up there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How can you be thinking of food at a time like this? Maybe because it's lunchtime?
That is from High School Musical 3. That is Sharpay saying it to Ryan because she's upset that the musical is about all of them. It's at lunchtime. And, like, can I just say the High School Musical lunches looked really good.
Okay, I'm giving you 3 points for that one.
And I'm sorry you can't do this. I really am. Because I wouldn't have to sit here and watch you fumble around and mess it up.
That's from Good Will Hunting. Right?
Yeah. Who says it?
That's Ben Affleck's character. To Matt Damon. They're at the construction site.
Wrong.
No?
You get 1 point. It's Will. And he says it, I'm pretty sure, to the math problem.
Oh, no.
Ooh. That one I knew was going to trick you because I took it out of a big, like, paragraph.
Dang it. Well, we can just...
0 points there.
All right.
All right. This is the last one for you, sir. Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends time and space.
You know, that's from Interstellar. Whenever that movie came out, I was super emo boy, and I loved that quote so much.
I should have chosen the other one.
That's Coop again, right? Or is it Anne Hathaway's character?
Who's Anne Hathaway's character?
I don't remember her name. I'm just gonna go with Coop, but I'm probably wrong. Who said that?
Brand.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. What do you have? I feel like didn't you quote this one the other day, the do not go gentle into that good night.
Yes, that's
Old
actually
age should burn and rave at close.
Yeah, I did quote that. That's from that movie, but it's actually part of it's its own thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Why didn't you tell me you didn't like my meatloaf? You could have said that to me 37 years ago.
So that's the Amazing Spider-Man, right?
So 1 point. Who says it?
That's hard. There's so many great quotes in that movie.
I know.
And you really picked out the nitty-gritty, didn't you?
All right. How many?
Let's pause and count these up. All right, we counted them up.
Counting them up. How many? 3, 2, 1. 20.
21. Oh, I just lost my 1 point. That's actually better than I thought.
Good job. Yeah.
We are
the Everyday Creative Podcast.
The Everyday Creative Podcast. Thanks again for listening.
Or watching.
See, the ends are fun. You got to watch to the end.
I know. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Comment what you thought. Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram.
Following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Give us that 5-star review.
5-star review.
And yeah. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next episode.
Yeah. Go watch Paul ride that worm.
No. Oh, that was good.
Good job.
Very good.